Hi everyone, namaste, and welcome to part 1 of this series of videos which contains my current perspective on how we can have good discussions, how we should phrase reality, and how we should deal with uncertainty, and with the ultimate end goal to help us to become as close as possible to our creative potential, to be able to create as much as we're capable of and become the best version of ourselves. My name is jari'sTotelos. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you in advance for participating in the discussion of these topics and therefore helping to increase our understanding of them. Now, one of the main reasons why I wanted to begin with this topic is because I currently think that a good discussion can be one of the best ways to help us to maximize our potential. Especially those discussions where the participants focused on engaging with each other and on increasing their understanding of the topic, so that everyone involved could learn and improve as much as possible. And I've always loved these types of discussions as well, because these allowed for the most learning and creativity, which will further help to maximize our potential. And this learning mindset, along with a willingness to change our perspectives based on that increased understanding, and then wanting to apply it to improve ourselves, can make these discussions very productive and always in our best interests, no matter if we could convince the other person or not. Unfortunately, right now, I believe that most of our discussions in our human history haven't accomplished this yet, or at least not fully. For example, those discussions where we didn't want to admit we were wrong, when we struggled to admit our doubts, or when we simply didn't go into the discussion with an open mind. And so in this video series I would like to share the current perspective I use on how we can help to fix some of these issues. And in addition to that, I'm going to try to lay the foundations of what a good discussion can be, because right now I think that if we can all agree beforehand on things like the purpose of the discussion, how to deal with our uncertainty, what a fact is, what a perspective is, how to phrase our judgment, etc., then I think we can massively improve our discussions and our potential. And after having laid the foundations together, we can then improve upon these foundations, or even change them if we found something better. That's perfect. All right, I think this has been enough introduction, so let's get into the main topic. Now, before I get into the foundations of the discussion, since it's the first main video of this channel, and we don't know each other yet, I think it's best to first give you a little introduction to me, the channel, and my life's journey that has led me to making these types of videos. Then I will briefly go into why I currently believe that the goal of the channel should be the maximization of our potential and to become the best version of ourselves. And finally, I will explain why I currently think that we could use namaste to mean that we want to bow to the divine version of ourselves, which is that person whose goal it is to become the best version of him or herself. And in the end, I will give a summary of why I currently believe this. In parts 2 and 3, I will go more in depth on the main topics of the series, like why I've often used terminology like current perspective, currently think, etc., what a perspective is, what a fact is, when and how to change our perspectives, how to deal with uncertainty, and how to deal with judgment of ourselves and of others. My full name, as pronounced in Dutch, my native language, is jari'sTotelos. I'm 24 years old, and I'm currently living in a village called Oudekerk aan de Amstel, near Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. While I was named after a football player, tennis was and has until this day been my favorite sport to play. And ever since I was a kid, I've been trying to emulate and imitate players that I admired, like Federer and Nadal, always trying something new to get better, and having some local tournament success doing it. Now, I was never close to being very talented or amazing at anything. I could play decent tennis, football, chess, table tennis, etc., and I was pretty good at school, but I never really excelled at anything. And me being all-round decent contributed to me often being in awe of people who did excel at these things. Like my friend Sander, who played very high level junior tennis and was actually able to win a few matches while I always lost immediately or didn't qualify at all. And my friend Bart, who excelled at maths and physics. And while Bart was 2 years younger than me and never really had to work for good grades, I was working and studying very hard to even just barely pass in the end, if I passed at all. Now, while I was in awe and admiration, I did often wonder why they were so much better than me, and so I started to look for answers. However, when I asked my parents, teacher, or coach why people like Sander and Bart were better than me, I often got a disappointing answer like, well, sometimes we just have to accept that some people are just better at tennis, physics, math, etc. than us. Especially my dad, who was all around decent, would often reassure me that there was nothing wrong with accepting that they were better at math and physics, because we were better at things overall, like tennis and table tennis. But while I didn't feel too bad by this answer, it just didn't make sense to me, and at times, me perhaps also being a bit arrogant, I just couldn't accept that someone was simply better than me. And also around the time when I was 16, 17, I started thinking about my purpose in life, and I reasoned that, well, if life was all about evolution, and evolution was all about always improving, then I thought that maybe I should be improving as well all the time. And so I kept on trying to get better as well as to prove people wrong. Because I wanted to prove that I could become a better player than them, that I could do well at math, and that these people were not simply better than me at this. At least not without me trying my best to become the best tennis player, mathematician, and physicist that I could be. And with this mindset, for many years I've been trying out new ways to maximize my potential and to become the best version of myself, especially at tennis. But now, I think I've made enough progress in the last year, including me realizing that even if I'm not 100% certain of a topic, starting a discussion on the topic to learn and grow from other people is most likely way more important. And so I think I finally have enough knowledge and confidence to share these perspectives in a healthy way. That is, a way that focuses on broadening our combined understanding of the topic by learning from my own and other people's experiences, so that we're engaging in a discussion that is not just heavy, but also healthy. A way that aims to maximize our potential. And this brings me to the current goal of the channel. Its current goal is to help you and me to become as close as possible to our creative potential. That is, to be able to create as much as we're capable of and to become the best version of ourselves. But it's not only about maximizing these more general areas, it's also about maximizing our own unique talents, such as sports, craftsmanship, math, singing, comedy, history, etc. As well as maximizing talents that are even more unique, like squirting milk from ice into a cup. I mean, whatever unique talents we might have, the discovering and maximization of them is what this channel's goal is currently all about. Now, why is this the current goal of the channel? Well, in short, right now I think that trying to maximize our potential is the most important goal in anyone's life. Primarily because I currently think that maximizing our potential through trial and error, probably a big part of evolution, is an instinct that has been universal in all life forms, from the first single-celled organisms up until us human beings. And so far, I have found no better way to explain how we were able to evolve from a single-celled organism to the most incredible organism that is our own human body. In fact, the one explanation that has made the most sense to me by far is that the maximization of potential has been the driving force behind all life that has ever been, and perhaps even behind that of the entire universe since the Big Bang. Furthermore, I also currently strongly believe that we are all born with this instinct to maximize our potential, because this can explain why most children instinctively want to explore their environment, learn from their mistakes, and grow as a result. Now, there are many other reasons why I currently believe that this is the purpose of life. But for now, I think it's better to first try to lay the foundations for us having the best discussions. That way, we can discuss the purpose of life later, but in the most productive way possible. So therefore, at this moment, I believe that the goal of the channel should be the maximization of our potential. Now, you might have noticed that I've said namaste at the beginning. But why did I do that? And what did I mean by this? Well, namaste in Hinduism means something like, I bow to the divine within you. So what is this divine in ourselves? I currently interpret this divine within us as that version of ourselves which strives to maximize our potential. And it's that version of ourselves that I currently want to try and speak to. And the reason I want to speak to that divine version of ourselves is because I found it very hard at times to keep improving myself and to keep being open to new perspectives. Because I failed at this so many times. For example, after binge eating on sugar, cursing others and myself, not exercising, escaping responsibility for my actions, and not wanting to learn from my mistakes. But I think that because I kept in mind that making those big mistakes was all right, as long as I did my best to use them to learn and grow, no matter how long it took. And then I've experienced that in the end, I always came out a better and stronger person when I finally learned from the experience by now being able to create something better, to not make that mistake again, and to become a better version of myself as a result. And then I realized it's not about the person we have been, but about the person we can become. And this is what I currently interpret in namaste. No matter how many mistakes we've made, as long as we keep striving to learn from our human mistakes, then we will eventually reach our divine states. And everything will be all right. Namaste. Namaste, indeed. So in summary, the main reason for starting off with this topic is because I currently think that agreeing on the foundations of a discussion will help the most in increasing our understanding of the topics discussed, and therefore to maximize our potential. In parts 2 and 3, I will go more in depth on the main topic of this series, including the use of terms like current perspective, the definition of facts, when and how to change our current perspective, how to deal with uncertainty and judgment. The current goal of this channel is to help us to become as close as possible to our creative potential and become the best version of ourselves, or simply to maximize our potential. With the current reason being that right now I believe that this has been the driving force behind all life, and perhaps even the entire universe, and that this has explained why most children have had the instinct to keep exploring, learning, and growing. And finally, when I say namaste, I currently mean the following. I bow to that divine version of ourselves, which aims to maximize our potential. I really hope that this video has given you a good introduction to me and the goal of this channel, and that it's been a good starting point for us to maximize our potential together. Now I would love to discuss these perspectives with you in the comments below, so that we can improve these ideas, practice our discussion skills, and learn more from and about each other to become closer to the best version of ourselves. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.